Hello and welcome back everyone, I am the Otaku, and today we're taking a look at the Star Wars Battlefront Bespin DLC, as well as the accompanying patch. As always, I will be going over all the new content, giving you my thoughts thus far, and then digging into the patch notes to let you guys know what's new, what's changed, and what you can expect during your upcoming gameplay experiences. Getting right into it, the Bespin DLC includes 5 new maps, 2 heroes, a new vehicle, a new game mode, 2 new weapons, and 3 new star cards. Unfortunately, just like the last DLC, the new content is only playable through the Bespin DLC playlist. However, you can still go right into the playlist to search for a specific game mode to start out on. The new game mode for Bespin DLC is Sabotage. The Empire is using Tubana gas generators to power their tractor beams, preventing rebel transports from escaping Cloud City. For the first phase of the game mode, the rebels have arrived at a location where a few of these generators are stored. The rebels must fight their way through the Imperial defense, plant charges on these generators, and ensure that they detonate before the time runs out. If successful, the second phase of the game mode begins, where rebels must fall back to their extraction point and defend it until the transport ships are ready to leave. Sabotage is intense and strategic, as both teams struggle over multiple points and have the assistance of heroes during different stages of the game. What I like most about this game mode is how easily the flow of battle and difficulty of attacking or defending can instantly change depending on the location of the remaining objectives, how many are left, and what heroes are still available in the game. So do look forward to my How to Not Suck at Sabotage coming out shortly, which will go over all the best strategies, loadouts, and I'll even let you guys know where to find those hero pickup locations. Moving on, the new maps for Bespin are based on Cloud City, Administrator's Palace, Carbon Freezing Chamber, Bionic Laboratories, and the Bespin Airspace. Cloud City is a Tubana gas mining colony that is floating in the clouds of the planet Bespin. It has 392 levels and is a popular tourist destination, with the first 50 levels being luxury resorts and casinos. Administrator's Palace is a 56-story building located in the center of the upper plaza of Cloud City. It is the home of Baron Administrator Lando Calrissian and some other government officials. The Carbon Freezing Chambers is a very iconic location, where Han Solo was first frozen into carbonite and where Luke Skywalker faced off with Darth Vader. Then we have the Bionic Laboratories, which is a cybernetic and bioimplants manufacturer in Cloud City. And last is the Bespin Airspace, where you are 60,000 feet above the ground, fighting in the clouds outside of Cloud City on Fighter Squadron. Now, some of you may have not been able to play all the new maps yet. This is because the playlist isn't set up the best, and the fact that people keep leaving after each Sabotage game to join a new one. However, DICE has already confirmed there is a fix coming out on the 27th, which is tomorrow, so you can look forward to that. The new heroes available are Baron Administrator Lando Calrissian and the Bounty Hunter Dengar. Lando is a dashing rogue, wielding his trusty X8 Night Sniper pistol with a special trait called Fortune Trigger, which gives him a higher chance to land critical hits the more enemies he defeats. His abilities are Power Blast. Once activated, it will give a critical modifier on Lando's blaster fire for a limited time. Then Shocking Trap, which throws a decoy on the ground to confuse enemies and shock anyone that gets close. And last is a System Disruption, which disrupts all nearby enemies' weapons star cards, setting them to overheat, and it also affects hero abilities. Now, to be quite honest with you guys, Lando in his current state is rather pathetic. His low health, average mobility, and weak offensive attacks make it so he can't 1v1 any villain or take on multiple infantry without pretty much dying. However, recent news suggests that Lando will be getting buffs some point soon, so we can look forward to that. Dengar, on the other hand, is a tough and destructive bounty hunter. He uses his DLT-19 heavy blaster and has a special trait called Tough Fighter, which gives him higher resistance to damage with the more enemies he defeats. His abilities are Explosive Rush, where Dengar will run forward and stick grenades to all enemies he passes. Frenzied Blast, which greatly increases the rate of fire of his primary weapon, the DLT-19, and Hurricane Strike, which performs a melee strike attack while running forward. While Dengar is a bit stronger coming out of the door, he too has his share of problems. His trait is not functioning correctly and therefore makes it really difficult to stay alive when using a lot of his abilities that put him in harm's way by running forward and charging into enemies. His DLT-19 is a little bit weak and has difficulty taking down heroes or honor guards. And then his Hurricane Strike is completely broken right now, one-shotting some heroes. Then finally, his Frenzied Blast has this massive delay after activating it, where you can't shoot for some time again, making it really difficult to use in 1v1 fights without just dying. But just like with Lando, I'm sure they'll be taking a look at Dengar and fixing some of these problems. Next up we have the two new weapons, which are the X8 Night Sniper pistol and the EE4, unlocked through hut contracts. The X8 Night Sniper is a blaster pistol with decent damage, cooling power, and range. It stands out due to its enhanced thermal vision scope, capable of revealing people in most weather and different times of the day. Having used it as infantry and with Lando, it's pretty safe to say that this blaster pistol flat out sucks. You will lose most gunfights to just about anything, and the only real benefit of having it is to see through smoke. The EE4, on the other hand, is similar in nature to the EE3, but was constructed with a short and stubby barrel to allow it to fire more effectively at closer distances with spread shots. Despite its reduction in accuracy and at range, the weapon makes up for it with its greater rate of fire. And with my experiences thus far, the EE4 is very competitive in close quarters combat, and even with its crazy spread can still put out cover fire at medium distance, or when used with focus fire, can even snipe enemies at long range. So it looks like we finally have a competitor to the SE14C, but just like the EE3, it does suffer from perfect rhythm syndrome, where shooting too quickly can cause the weapon to lock up. And unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot you can do about it except find that perfect firing rhythm, which isn't going to trigger that issue. After that, we have the three new star cards: Disruption, Shock Grenade, and Scout Binoculars, also unlocked via hut contracts. Disruption is a localized disruption wave that knocks out enemy blasters, turrets, and droids. When Disruption is activated, a disruption wave is discharged from the soldier. The wave is harmless to humanoids, though it will temporarily disable the cooling units on the blasters. Enemies will not be able to cool their blasters until the disruption effect has worn off. So Disruption is definitely a lot of fun and a good alternative to Scan, Pulse, and other charge cards you would normally use in close quarters combat. This card also works on heroes and has some devastating effects if used at the right time. It does take some time to activate and for the effects to finally trigger on their weapons, so I do suggest you use it kind of as like a first thing you do coming around the corner or when spotting a lot of enemies, and not waiting until you're already low on health. To counter this card, you have a few different options. You can melee the opponent or pull out a star card like the Scatter Gun, as it has no effect on these things. Alternatively, Cooling Cell and Adrenaline Rush both negate the effects and take them off completely. Then my personal favorite option is just to activate my own disruption when they activate theirs, and then prepare yourself to engage for when it cools off. You usually have the upper hand because they use theirs first, and therefore it will wear off first. Just make sure that you don't miss that cooling flush. Next we have the Shock Grenade. The Shock Grenade delivers an electrical discharge, leaving everyone caught in its range incapable of moving. It's a non-lethal alternative to the wide array of explosives in the game, where the electrical blast will stun enemies with high voltage currents. This offers team play options where someone can throw a shock grenade to stun and scatter enemies while his comrades run in to take them out. The shock grenade's a little bit tricky to use as it doesn't go off right away and can also backfire onto yourself. Therefore you need to plan things out, use it preemptively or on unsuspecting enemies from a distance. To counter these effects, there isn't a whole lot you can do. While under the effects, you can spam a button as fast as possible to try to escape, but other than that, good luck. Then the last new card is the Scout Binoculars, which are powerful binoculars capable of revealing enemy units to the entire team. The Scout Binoculars will mark and highlight enemies in your view for as long as you zoom in with them. Be mindful that if you release the zoom or enemies run out of your line of sight, the highlight is removed and you must readjust your aim to get that back. When you press the fire button, the binoculars will scan the area, and any soldiers, turrets, or vehicles that are highlighted at the time will become tagged for the entire team to see. So essentially it works like a manual scan pulse for the whole team. However, also very useful for simply looking around and acquiring targets or reading the flow of battle, as the special vision makes it super easy to see enemies from anywhere. My favorite technique when using these is to jetpack into the air looking towards the enemy spawn points, and then marking as many enemies as possible. A lot of the time I'm able to get a good majority of their team, racking up tons of points for myself and doing a big favor for my teammates. Then the last DLC thing we have is the Cloud Car. Native to Cloud City, this vehicle is available to Rebels and Imperials. I really enjoy this new addition as it has some great agility, allowing you to easily navigate around the cityscape at quick speeds. However, its health pool is rather low, so it can easily be taken out by something as simple as an infantry weapon, as well as the fact that the model is a little wide and misleading, so you can sometimes crash into buildings when you clearly thought that you were out of their distance. And that is all for Bespin content. Now it's time to move on to the patch notes. Just keep in mind that for the sake of time, I'm only going over important changes that alter the balance of the game or bring something new. There are always a ton of bug fixes, UI changes, and other not so important things that don't really need to be talked about. Instead, I will put a link to the official notes in the description below where you can check out all the little details yourself. Starting off with new content, ranks have been increased from 60 to 70. There is a new skin for Rebels, which is the Bespin Wingguard, and a new skin for Empire, which is the Shock Trooper. Palpatine's Honor Guards have been updated and replaced with Royal Guards, and Leia's Honor Guards have been updated and replaced with Alderaan Guards. Moving on to general changes, there have been a bunch of important changes to the partnering system. The game will now try to auto-assign you a new partner whenever you do not have one in-game. It will also give you notifications to inform you if you have gained one or lost one. Staying close to your partner will now provide you with reduced cooldowns for all your star cards. Enemies that kill your partner will have a red outline for a brief period of time. And if you are not able to spawn on your partner, there are now written explanations as to why. For example, partners in danger, partners out of bounds, in a vehicle, or dead. And then the distance to enemies that prevents spawning on the partner has been reduced from 20 to 2. Now I do think this system is an improvement in some ways. The whole partner rewards is a cool system for having people work together. However, it also brings a lot of issues. It is extremely unfair that I kill someone and then his partner gets wall hacks to see where I am, getting easy revenge kills. Also, nobody wants somebody standing right on top of them and following them around at all times. You can't strafe around during gunfights, move in and out of cover, or even jetpack without bumping into them all the bloody time. My death count has skyrocketed since the patch due to my partners constantly spawning on me, then standing directly on me and blocking my path during crucial moments. Also, do you know what it's like having someone on your own team be responsible for half of your deaths, only to spawn on you, jetpack in front of you, and steal the hero token you were going towards? Also, I'm not sure if you realize this, but Scout Trait only works for yourself. If you have a dumbass partner running around beside you with his herp-a-derp easy mode Berserker trait on, spraying at everything that moves, then it completely destroys your stealthing abilities, further contributing to your deaths. Auto partnering should be an optional thing that can be toggled on and off, not forced on everyone to deal with and roll the dice to see whether you get a good partner or not. Moving on to weapons and star card changes, players will now be able to deactivate charge cards. Once this is done, the effect will be removed and the charge will instantly enter a cooldown state. This is mostly useful for personal shield, as you can now easily take it off early and catch people off guard. After that, Scan Pulse now continuously sends out pulses at 2-second intervals. When someone is pulsed, they will remain visible for 0.5 seconds. So instead of always being active, it's more like quickly turning the light switch on and off every few seconds. The problem with this is the active time is so short that you won't even know an enemy is coming unless you are looking in their direction at that exact moment. It actually happens so fast that you could literally blink and miss out on its effects. This change is very over the top and makes Scan Pulse very frustrating to use. I would also like to point out that the new sound it makes is so annoying and will drive you crazy after its 100th time using it. Then Bowcaster is seeing some changes once again, with its fire pattern being altered to a cross instead of being horizontal. This makes it more effective and easier to get kills if you can hit the target directly or directly onto them, otherwise it pretty much sucks and you won't even touch them. Pulse Cannon is seeing some changes as well, with a laser glint being added so players that are being targeted by the Pulse Cannon will see the green laser on their screen, thus revealing the location of the attacker and informing them of the attack. So not only is it retardedly difficult to fire this thing because of its stupid quirks, and now gives away your position and makes them aware of their impending doom, easily able to escape. On top of that, the Pulse Cannon damage to heroes has been reduced from 150% to 80%. In other words, RIP Pulse Cannon. Explosive Shot has also been changed so that it will now cause double the heat buildup on any weapon when being used. To balance this, the time the charge has been active has been increased for both normal and upgraded cards. So with this change, you're going to need to cooling flush in between kills, and for heroes versus villains, I still recommend the A280C, as it can shoot up to 13 rounds before overheating even after the nerfs. Other than that, it's not really a big deal breaker, you just need to work around it. Berserker has also been changed so that the Berserker effect will trigger on 78% HP or less. A vignette has been added to inform the player that the Berserker effect is active, and the armor multiplier has been increased while the Berserker effect is active. So with it activating until much lower health, one-shot abilities like the Pulse Cannon or Scattergun are more effective against Berserker users. However, because of the increased armor multiplier, its effect in regular gunfights still remains intact for the most part. The DLT-19 has its initial damage raised from 15 to 17. This change isn't really a big deal, it will take one last shot per kill between 0 to 15 meters and puts its time to kill in line with the RT-97C. This is really more of a fix than anything else. After that, the Ion Disruptor has its increased explosive radius on the Disruptor projectile, the inner explosion from 1 to 2.5 meters and the outer from 2.5 to 7. So this is a pretty crazy buff. The Disruptor can now wipe out entire groups of people if they're bunched together in hallways, kinda like the Thermal Imploder. The Back to Bomb also has been updated so that some hero abilities are more effective against players that are currently under the effect. But I haven't really noticed these effects. People are still surviving lightsaber swings from Luke and full charge shots from Lando. Moving on to hero changes, Palpatine is getting some buffs. His lightning has increased from 4 to 7 seconds, and the recharge time has been decreased from 4 to 2 seconds, as well as the damage being increased from 20 to 22. So these changes are pretty much exactly what he needed. Palpatine always felt a little weak, taking too long to kill honor guards and way too much skill to 1v1 most heroes. Now he is feeling very capable. Boba Fett's also been buffed. They modified the behavior of the flamethrower to be more responsive. They increased the active time from 2.5 to 4.5 seconds. And then they also reduced the time for the jetpack regeneration from 2 to 1.6 seconds. And they added back the lock-on for the wrist rocket for up to 25 meters. And the blast radius of the wrist rocket from 3 to 4 meters. So Boba Fett finally feels like a hero again. His flamethrower is still situational and I wouldn't necessarily run into a group of enemies trying to use it, but it can still do some scary damage if needed and last long enough to almost completely take out some heroes. The jetpack buff is great, but I also noticed that it feels much more responsive when you activate it, but maybe that's just me. And then the wrist rocket being usable again and locking on to infantry easily that are swimming around is great. And it will also make it easier to 1v1 other heroes. And then there's one last thing that I would like to cover under stats and progression. They removed the event for kill assist and critical kill assist and replaced it with regular kills. So if you deal more than 25 damage to an enemy, you automatically get a kill. This, in my opinion, is bullshit. I understand wanting to reward players for partial kills or to kind of abstract away from people kill stealing, but that's usually what assists are for to begin with. But this new system is causing all sorts of problems. People are given a false sense of accomplishment, rank 3 of traits is now way too easy to achieve, and the scoreboard is inflated with false kills not reflecting your real performance. So you'll even notice that these assists don't actually count as real kills during the end round screen or reflect in your overall KD. So why does it count on the game scoreboards or towards your trait level? It's misleading, pointless, and overall a stupid idea that just makes the scoreboards useless. If you want assists to be meaningful, then add a separate score on the scoreboards for assist. Don't muddy the waters by allowing it to look like kills during the game, but then not actually count as kills towards anything else. And that's pretty much it for the patch notes. I would also like to point out how disappointed I am that there is no Heroes vs Villains in the Bespin DLC playlist. Heroes vs Villains, in my opinion, is a hands down the most fun game mode, especially with friends, and it's way more popular than many of the other game modes that were included. How can they add new location-specific heroes, the carbon freezing chamber, which is the most iconic setting in the entire series, but then not utilize them? It's very disappointing. So while I'm happy that we finally have some new content, pretty much all of it is experiencing one issue or another, and for everything that they fixed, they also introduced more problems. So it's a pretty typical EA/DICE DLC release. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video helps sort everything out for you. Look forward to some hero guides, blaster reviews, and more how to not suck at game mode videos very shortly. But until then, as always, may the Otaku be with you.